We're making a movie and we're going to walk you through every component of what it takes to actually make a movie. We have a client, he's a doctor, and he has an idea for a medical drama series. And he booked a consulting session with me online, as some of you have done, and said to me, "Hey, Jeff, I want to make this, but I don't know anything about the movie business, but I know you do, and I need some help. Can you just basically walk me through the whole thing and put it all together and help me make this dream into reality?"
Do you feel like it's always necessary to hire a writer, or do you think the filmmaker can sometimes write the script themselves?
Oh yeah, lots of filmmakers are I would say writer directors. Not only could they write, but they're going to direct. I mean, so a lot of filmmakers. But in this case, this is a neurosurgeon doctor. He's not a writer. Number one, he doesn't know how to write. Maybe he does because he's a smart guy, but he doesn't have the time. He doesn't have the time to sit down and write a full-length feature script. So he needs help. So, I'm not saying he couldn't do it. I'm just saying it doesn't make sense to do it.
How do you feel Dr. D felt about the whole writing process and how everything was, how it flowed from start to finish?
Okay, so once I said to Dr. D, "Hey, I got the right writer for you. I think he's going to be a good fit." Then the next thing was to have a meeting. So we had a Zoom meeting with Dr. D, me, the writer. I believe were you on the first meeting? I can't remember.
Yeah, I was.
Okay, and you were on it. So it was all the introductory. So it's Dr. D, meet Joseph. Here's who's going to be writing. Tell him your idea. Tell him everything you want to talk about. I mean, I think it was like a 2-hour Zoom call. And then Joseph asked a lot of questions to Dr. D about a lot of things he talked about, some of the stuff he didn't talk about. And then I added in at the end, based on everything that you guys were talking about, because I was listening, I think we should add this, this, and this. I think there's some interesting plot lines and, directions that we can go into that would make it very dramatic and audience friendly. So that's how the whole thing started. All right. Then Joseph said, "Okay, it's going to start with, I'm going to write a treatment," which is like a, 8 to 10 page summary of what the script's going to look like. In his case, he actually wrote like a 1-page thing, an outline, just to make sure that he captured everything. And we didn't even give that to Dr. D. Joseph gave it to me, and I said, "Yeah, you're on the right page." Just a sanity check. Like, did I catch everything? Then he did basically a treatment, like an outline of, I think it was 8 or 9 pages, and capturing it. And then, we gave that to Dr. D, and he said, "Yeah, I like it. What about this? What about this? What about this?" Because now all of a sudden you're getting excited because it's coming to life. So for him, all of a sudden, this idea is on paper and it's real, and there's characters and there's names and there's plot points and there's a vision there. So that's when, he started getting really excited and saying, "Okay, how about this? How about that? How about that?" And I say, this is just what we call a summary of treatment. There's more to come. There's a lot more that we're going to expand on. There's all these other plot points and everything that we're going to build in. So as long as you like the sort of the direction that we're taking and sort of the main storyline that we're taking and the main characters, then we're good to go. And so there was basically 3 storylines. There's the storyline of the patient who has back injury, who's in a lot of pain, who needs a treatment or a procedure to come get out of pain. There's the storyline of the young neurosurgeon resident who is learning the whole industry and having to navigate the sort of the morals and values of what the industry, the oath you take as a doctor. And then there is the storyline of the medical rep who sells all the parts and cages and spinal stuff and screws and rods and everything to the hospitals to do these surgeries, and is very involved with the doctors in sharing the technology and the procedures. So there's 3 storylines that converge, and he liked that, and he felt that captured the essence of the stories that we want to tell from different, it's a style, it's a writing style of how you want to tell it. It also, I wanted that because, and basically when you see this movie, it's going to say story by Jeff Deverett, script by Joseph. So I said, I want these things because I want to be able to have the content to be able to build a series on. So these are 3 storylines with 3 distinct characters and 3 backstories and everything that's going on that gives us enough to build a storyline on. Now, in addition to that, there were another 2 or 3 storylines that I would have added in also but which we will add in if the series gets greenlit, like one of them being the whole side of medical insurance, like how the insurance companies get involved in terms of approving or disproving these surgeries and that kind of thing. It's a huge area. Then there's the whole side of hospital administration and all. So there's lots of other content that I would have added in, but at some point enough's enough to make a one-off standing movie. So I kind of led Joseph down that road and said, let's focus on these three storylines. And he wrote the treatment, because I've had lots and lots of conversations with Dr. D also about what he wants to do. And I felt that those were the storylines that would best tell it from those 3 points of view. And then Joseph wrote the first draft of the script. Now, throughout, we had probably 4 other Zoom meetings with Dr. D to talk about just to check in, because a lot of it was medical. There's a lot of medical terminology in it, and Joseph he did a lot of research online, and so he really was up to speed on what was involved to make it more accurate. But then Dr. D would contribute and say, what about this? What about this? Or did you think about this? Or at one point, I can't remember, Sally, if you were on this call, but he actually brought a patient on, like a spine patient, onto a Zoom call. And we met this guy who had gone through some serious medical procedures, had like a major serious problem, and had gone through various surgeries and procedures. And he told us his story, because it helped us relate to the character that we had about who's that story is about. So that was really helpful also. So I think Joseph, with that stuff, was able to capture the essence of a lot of, what's going on in the industry.
Yeah, I think it was really great to work with Dr. G just in general, just because since the script is based on a true story, just hearing from his real world experience, we kind of really got to tap into that and dive deep into it, along with like the patient that you had mentioned. And I think that honestly really makes a difference when you're writing your script, kind of immersing yourself. I know a lot of actors do that too, with like method acting or things like that, but I think it worked really well with this story.
Well, certainly for authenticity. I mean,
Mhm.
it's super realistic and authentic because it's, comes from the real people. Now, you got to dramatize it a little bit, right? Because you have to move the story along quicker, and you have to build in plot points that are interesting and everything like that. Which we did, but I think we've stayed very true to the authenticity of the industry and that type of thing. Yeah, obviously, there are some perspectives that come from the writer and from Dr. D, so you have to take some liberties, and that's part of making a movie and writing a screenplay and telling a story. And then, okay, so then we finish the first draft. Joseph sends it to me. I review it. I give him a bunch of feedback, everything from literally from spelling and grammar errors, because I want it to be nice and pristine and clean, to a couple of plot points, some dialogue, some settings. So that, like, for instance, I'll give you an example. So again, me being the producer and being very conscientious about not going over budget, there were a couple of scenes that he wrote in there that I thought were going to be too expensive to shoot. And I'll give you an example of that. Okay. So there's a scene where 2 doctors, like the doctor and the medical rep takes the doctor sort of out for like a outing, because this happens all the time. Right. And he takes him to, just for fun, Joseph said, they both always talk about fast cars, because a lot of doctors have, pretty fast, sports cars and that type of thing. So he's into sports cars. So there's a scene where the rep takes the doctor to a go-kart, place where you run these go-karts, and they go really fast and everything. And they're going to race. And it's a really good scene. He writes the scene. And I say, I love the scene. I love the relationships that's going on in the scene, and they're racing and doing all this kind of stuff. But it's going to cost us too much money to shoot that scene, because we got to get on the track. We got to, the noise, the noise issue is going to be a bit of an issue. We're going to, like, I know what it takes to film a scene like that, because they're running around this track and they're competing, and you got to put cameras on both of the cars or put them on tracks. And I mean, it's it's a very complicated, expensive scene to shoot. So I said, look, the point of this scene is not necessarily car racing. The point of the scene is the banter that goes on between the two of them, because they're both, you know, sort of got big egos and they're competing. They happen to be competing in that realm. And I said, and I love the idea that they're competing, you know, in cars, but it's going to be too expensive to shoot it, and it's going to be too hard to contain it with noise and all this kind of stuff. So let's rewrite that. So I suggested a couple of other places, you know, right from a simple thing like a bar, which wasn't exciting enough. So we worked on a couple of other ideas as to where they could have fun together, be competitive, but it would be contained, a lot easier to shoot, specifically in terms of sound and camera, obviously. And so that's what we did. And now that's the idea of a producer looking at a budget and really thinking about how to write a script that's going to fit into your budget. So,
And what did you guys end up settling on?
well, the reason I'm laughing is because we haven't settled on it yet. Okay. Because Joseph really, you know, as the writer, he wants to have fun with it. He wants to step it up, and so we talked about everything, like from a gun range, which also the noise is ridiculous and it's going to be expensive to go into a gun range. But you know, his idea as the writer is to show this real competitiveness. You know, like who can shoot the target better. You know, like for me, I say, well, if you want that competitive, let's put them in a bar and have them throw darts. All right. And now that's cheaper, easier, and quicker. And still you can have that competitiveness. All right. So right now, the draft that's in there is still at the gun range, but I doubt very much we're going to shoot that. You know, pun on the word shoot, because of two things. The logistics of renting a gun range might be a little tricky. Can you imagine all the licensing issues and everything? Kinsella, you're going to be involved in this,
Yeah,
of
the
going in there,
safety and everything.
you know, with live ammunition and all this. And I wouldn't do live, but you got to take all the ammunition out. So it's just, it's logistically a nightmare, not to mention the sound problem. Now look, there's lots and lots of primarily crime dramas and police dramas and everything that go into gun ranges. So it's doable. And we can also recreate that on a set. But it's not that important to spend that kind of money on that scene when we can get the exact same character banter and competitive sort of nature in something that's going to be a lot easier. Like even a basketball court, they could go to basket and shoot hoops, and that's super competitive because they're bumping into each other and pushing each other and who's better. That would even be fine with me, and we can do that anywhere, and it's easier to shoot and more contained. So that's what ultimately that scene is going to be. And the dialogue is going to be the exact same. All right. But instead of the fast cards, it's going to be like, I can, you know, shoot more 3-pointers than you can, or, you know, I'm a better athlete than you are, or something like that. Because the whole idea is just, it's an ego contest. Right.
You mentioned not wanting to spend the money on that part because you felt that that wasn't important to the script. Is there a certain part of the script that you felt was really important to spend money on? And would you encourage like other writers to really, if there's like one scene or one moment, should you be spending a lot of money on it, or should you kind of try and hold back and kind of disperse your funds evenly amongst the whole film?
Yeah. Okay. Great question. So that bridges on the artistic. There's an artistic side to that question and a financial side. All right. So I am a firm believer. Number one, you have to, if you want your movie to be successful, it has to be an entertaining movie. All right. You have to make a good movie. So you can't be, you know, cutting everything out, because there are always going to be certain scenes which I call add production value to the movie. And you want some, I'm going to say bigger scenes or more exciting scenes that are, you know, that elevate the sort of the level of the production of the movie. So in this movie, I believe that the big scenes, there's two places where if anything, I didn't cut, I encouraged it to be bigger. So I went the other direction. And the two major setups are one there's some surgery that there's actually, we go into these surgical theaters and the doctors are doing surgery. Now, we don't specifically see the surgery. I mean, we can if we want, but we're not going to do surgery on patients. We're going to probably use some stock footage or whatever, or just, you know, some special effects. But I want the surgery to look very authentic. So getting into these surgical, you know, rooms, operating rooms or theaters is going to be expensive, or setting it up will be expensive. but I feel that that's the essence of the movie, and I want to spend money there. So I didn't want it to be like just sort of in consultation rooms where we're talking about it. I want to be able to see that. Okay, that's important. And by the way, I'm directing the movie, so I can envision what those scenes are and how the banter goes there and the surgery and everything. And that creates, with most medical dramas, you need that kind of stuff. If you look at any of these medical shows, like the big shows, like Grey's Anatomy or anything like that, there's a lot of relationship stuff, but there's a lot of authentic medical stuff. So that I actually pushed Joseph to go bigger on. And then the other thing is there's this whole big setup where all three characters converge. They're all coming sort of from a different sort of point of view, but they all converge at a medical convention. So it's going to be expensive because we're going to shoot it with sort of what's going to look like a convention center. And this is based on reality. There are these conventions. I mean, they're huge with the booths and the different displays and all this kind of stuff. So we're going to need lots and lots of extras to fill the halls and make it, as they're walking through, there's going to be probably hundreds of people there. That's going to be very expensive. It's going to be probably 2 days of shooting, and it's going to cost a fortune, but it's going to make the movie look really big and really authentic. So to me, that is worth it. That's where I feel we're going to get a lot of production value. I can see using some of those shots in the trailer to make it feel big. Because you can't have every scene being two people talking in, a room. It's too boring. So we need some bigger stuff. So I feel like that's a worthwhile expenditure that is going to help elevate the story and the production value of the movie. And I pushed for bigger there. And Joseph even said to me, he said, Jeff, but this is going to cost us a fortune. I said, yeah, I know, but this is where I want to spend the money. This, I believe, is worth spending on, because I think this furthers the story and the characters and the plot lines more so than the go-kart racing track. So, okay. So Joseph and I go back and forth on the first draft of the script. I hone it a bit. We do exactly the stuff that we're talking about. We take out this, we add this, we do this. He does kind of what we call a polish on the first draft. And then I take it to Dr. D. And then we send it to Dr. D. He reads it, and we have a big Zoom meeting. Again, like a 2-hour meeting. And we talk about all this. Okay, what do you like? What don't you like? Did you feel it was authentic? Wasn't it? Was it good? Was it bad? Everything, right? And he gives us tons of feedback. Some of the stuff that he's talking about, I would say, is also too expensive and unrealistic in the budget we're shooting at. But some of the stuff is really interesting because, we maybe missed this or this, another idea of something that actually happened that could trigger something interesting in a different plot line or a plot point or whatever. And then he gave us lots of feedback, lots of interesting feedback. And then Joseph took that and went back and wrote the second draft. And that's basically when you hire a writer, that's how I do it. I hire them for a treatment and 2 drafts. And exactly what we did. So he writes the treatment, he writes the first draft, I give him feedback, and he goes back and polishes it and writes the second draft. Now, it wasn't a gigantic task to write the second draft. Like, we didn't rebuild the whole script. It was mostly based on Dr. D's comments, because I'd already given him my comments. And that's where we're at. We have a second draft, and I'm happy with it. I mean, it will change as we evolve because we're getting, as we get ready to shoot. I mean, things that will change the script are, Dr. D might come up with some different ideas or whatever. But when we go to cast, it's going to be interesting to see who we cast, and we might change a couple of, scenes or dialogue, or nothing major, just to more fit the characters. And there's always an evolution as the script gets ready to be shot. And then, on set, when it does get shot, some of the actors go off script anyways. It ends up getting changed anyways. But the script is the foundation for the whole movie. So we finalized the script, and then we gave it to you, Sally. We gave it to you to do the script breakdown and the strip board, which is the shooting schedule. So that's another episode. We're going to talk about that, in another episode. But once you have the final script, and like I said, the final script's never final until the movie's finished being shot. But we're very happy with where it's at right now. We think it captures the story well. The characters, are all in place to lead into a series if we want it to, and we can shoot it at the right budget level. So all of those things were really important, and I think we achieved all of them. That's the script. What do you think, Jer?
I think it's just so interesting to see how many things go into actually writing the script, most especially when it's a person who doesn't even know how to write a script and it's more of an idea, how many collaborators and different perspectives it takes to get a finalized movie script. I just think that's really interesting, an interesting process.
Okay. And Sally,
Yeah.
like, I mean, you were part of a lot of it. So, you know, what do you want to add anything? Did I miss anything, or do you have a different perspective of it?
Um, it definitely took a lot longer than I expected, but I think that's a good thing just because of how many revisions and how there's a lot of different perspectives being put into it. So I think that was very beneficial just because I feel like it really honed in and got the script that we needed and wanted out of it. Um, but just seeing how many different people's ideas or perspectives were coming to life in just one format was really cool. And then obviously when I did the schedule and budgeting and everything like that, I liked how cohesive it all was. But the process was very interesting.
Tell the audience how long it took, if you recall.
I mean, would you consider the script finalized now or
As I said to you, the script's never finalized until it's shot. All right.
yeah.
There's gonna be tweaks all the way along that. And I'm just used to that. Okay. But I would say, yes, this is the script that we're obviously have budgeted for, that we're scheduling to shoot everything. So yes, it's what we would call the final script until the actors want to change lines, and, you know, and I'm the director, and maybe I want to change a couple things. The cinematographer says, oh, we can't do this. How about this? You know, so the little things like that will happen.
Yeah. I think from the point from when we were finding a writer, like not just the script writing, but just we had the idea and we are looking for a writer to the point where we have it as close to finalized as possible. I think that whole process was about 7, 8 months.
Did it take that long? It's funny. I don't recall it taking that long.
I mean, I remember it was when I lived at my old house and that was 6, 7 months ago.
Okay. I think it was. So if you were to ask me that question, I mean, I would recall it differently. I would say from the time we said, go get a writer, I didn't have to look around a lot because I knew which writers were available. And I basically chose Joseph right off the spot because I thought he'd be the right one.
Mhm.
I think he took, I don't know, 6 to 8 weeks, maybe, yeah, 6 to 8 weeks to write the treatment, and maybe 2 months to write the script. Or did I give him more than that? 3 months? So maybe you're right. I don't know. Like, I would say the whole thing was 6 months.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I could look back,
I
and
agree
I
with
could look
that.
back on the date of the agreement that we signed. So I'm thinking it was 6 months.
Yeah,
And
I think, I mean, from the first draft, I think it was definitely less than that, but just with how many revisions. And then I think after all the meetings with Dr. D, that the script evolved a lot and changed a lot from the get-go.
yeah. Okay. Yeah. So now, by the way, I don't think it needs to take that long. We weren't in a huge rush because we weren't planning to shoot the movie until May, June this year, and we knew that. So I probably gave Joseph a little more time than I needed to, which was fine. And I personally think you can go through this whole process from choosing a writer and going through treatment for a second draft with all the collaboration. I think it can be done in as short as 3 months, maybe even 10 weeks, 10 to 12 weeks. But, you know, a lot of people take 4 to 6 months. So I think we took on the high end of, because I wasn't pushing it as much. But if we needed to do it quicker, I think we could.
Mhm.
That's my take. Okay, so that's script writing. So now we've got the script. The next episode will be talking about scheduling the shoot, doing what we call a script breakdown, a shooting schedule, and finalizing the budget so that we have a lot more sort of predictability about how long it's going to take us to shoot, you know, what it's going to look like in terms of like how many days, when I say how long, what we actually need, you know, in terms of now what the script is. Because before it was just a guess. Like I said, 700 is a guess. Now we're going to actually be able to, well, we've been able to budget it based on the actual script and come in at that level so that it matches it, and that's where, when we say, is it a final script? If we have to tweak a little bit here or there because we have to match the budget. So when I talked about those whole convention scenes, maybe we have 80 extras as opposed to 150. Those are budgeting things. So we'll talk about that in the next episode. Okay, well, hopefully you enjoyed this first episode about writing, and we'll see you on the next one when we talk about scheduling and budgeting.
Thanks for watching this episode of We're Making a Movie. Make sure to subscribe to stay tuned for our next episode.